Hey everybody, Kneecap here. This is my Fury Warrior DPS guide for 7.1. Disclaimer, this guide is for more of a struggling Fury Warrior or a new Fury Warrior to help you get to that next level to where you're more viable. I know I've seen a lot of Fury Warriors struggling, whether I'm just in LFR or normal EN, or just even in some of my guild runs when the expansion was first starting. And some people just still haven't quite grasped Fury Warrior, so I kind of wanted to do a video guide helping out the best that I can. So first we'll just kind of go through the talents really quick and kind of go over what each of them does and what's the best one to use. Now, with Warriors, there are a few options depending on the talent tree and depending on what you're doing. I'm going to mostly focus on rating talents and not on instance talents, but I'll kind of try to go over those a little bit too. So you have War Machine, killing a target grants you 30% haste, 30% movement. Obviously, that's a leveling talent or a world questing talent. It's not for rating. I guess you could technically use it for dungeons as well, but not that great of a talent. Fresh Meat, Bloodthirst has 40% increased critical strike chance against targets above 8% health. Basically, that'll keep you enraged nearly constantly for the first 20% of a fight. Uh, not a terrible talent because of the fact that you should always be enraged during the last 20% of the fight too. So you have 60% of the fight where you aren't having as much enrage. But Endless Rage is kind of the go-to here, and it's your auto attacks generate 30% additional rage. So that's just you're going to be able to rampage more often, and rampage is going to enrage you, which is important because that's when you do your damage. On the next line here, Stormbolt's pretty much just a PvP, situational PvP talent. Shockwave is a decent dungeon talent, and it can be used in a raid as well. And also Stormbolt, I do have to throw in that Stormbolt does do some damage, so you could use it for damage, but the damage isn't good enough really to throw it into your rotation, which is why kind of the go-to thing here, if you're not doing a dungeon or leveling, is double time, which is lets you charge an additional time. That's also nice because that's a good way to increase rage, or on a fight where you have to run out, you can run right back in with your charge while also getting some rage. On this next tier, we have Wrecking Ball. Wrecking Ball is the go-to AoE DPS. So with Nighthold coming out, if any of those Nighthold fights are going to be high AoE fights, that could be a useful talent. Also with Helia, Wrecking Ball can be a useful talent because of all the ads in Phase 2. Then we have Outburst. Berserker Rage now causes enrage. Right now, that's just not anything useful. You're going to be enraged plenty without having to do that, so that's not that useful. Avatar is going to be your go-to single target, which most fights are right now, single target fights, and that just transforms you into Colossus, causing you to do increased damage. The next line, one that's a go-to is War Paint, which you're going to take a little bit less damage while you're enraged. The Fury Warrior fantasy they kind of made is while you're enraged, you're also taking more damage because you're being reckless. So that kind of decreases the damage that you take. That could help you not get one shot, perhaps, from a mechanic. Uh, it's kind of your healer, but it's not necessary. You have Furious Charge. Charge also increases the healing from your next Bloodthirst by 300%. Again, that's more of like a leveling or world questing type talent. I go between Bounding Strides and Warpaint. Bounding Stride reduces the cooldown Heroic Leap, and now causes you to sprint. I kind of use that as kind of more mobility to kind of go with double time. Next line, we have, let's go with Carnage, reduces cost of Rampage by 15 Rage. That's actually a useful talent as well. Again, it's going to cause you to be more enraged more often. Frothing Berserker, when you reach 100 rage, your damage is increased by 10% and your movement speed by 30%. So again, that's kind of more of a leveling talent. And then Massacre is kind of the go-to, although Carnage is good as well. Massacre is kind of the go-to because of the artifact weapon trait that causes your execute to basically critical strike all the time, and then you get a free rampage. So it makes your execute phase really nice, and that's why I suggest using Massacre. Your next line, you have Bloodbath. For 10 seconds, your melee attacks and abilities cause the target to bleed for more damage. That's not a bad added damage talent there, but it's not necessarily the best talent. Furious Slash increases your haste by 5% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. Now, Furious Slash is just such a weak move that no one really uses Frenzy, but, you know, I can't say that there isn't a build where it's not useful, or it is useful, I should say. but definitely not what I'm going to go with. I go with Inner Rage. Raging Blow no longer requires Enrage and deals much more damage, but it has a little bit more of a cooldown. And that's kind of what I go with there is Inner Rage. Although, like I said, this line could be, I mean, you would have to build yourself around it, but you could make other uses of this line. The final line of talents, Battle Cry generates 100 Rage. It's just going to max out your Rage on your Battle Cry so you can most notably probably Rampage right afterwards, causing you to be enraged, and then use your other abilities. So while that's nice and everything, it's not necessary, especially because you can Bloodthirst as well to get your enrage active. Blade Storm is going to be the best AoE option. So again, if you're doing an AoE, Wrecking Ball, Blade Storm, those are good things to use probably. It's going to cause you to do a little bit more damage for an AoE situation. But Dragon Roar right now is the best way to go. I believe this talent might be getting nerfed soon, but as of right now, it is the best talent. It always crits, and the biggest thing is it also causes the damage you deal to go up by 20% for 6 seconds. So after you Dragon Roar, you're going to want a Raging Blow or Odin's Fury afterwards and cause the most damage you can. So those are kind of the talents. Those are what I go with. Kind of went over some of the other ones and some of the different specs as well. We'll kind of go into our stats now. Basically, you're going to want to stack haste as much as you can. So I'm at 23.64 haste. I would like to be 23.64, and I would like to be a little bit higher than that, really. I'd like to be over 25. I have 1 or 2 pieces of gear that have haste on it. Basically, it's going to be really hard, especially, let's say you just dinged 110. It's going to be really hard for you to get up to 25% haste, so your damage might look not very good. Once you start getting over 20%, you should, if you're doing everything right, notice an increase in your damage. And basically, the more haste, it's not going to hurt you any to have more. I mean, after I get to 25, I'm going to hopefully get to 30, without completely ruining your other stats as well. You see, I don't have any versatility, and I don't really care for versatility as a Fury Warrior. I kind of just try to go with crit and mastery. I actually am personally leaning towards crit right now, and it's giving me some pretty good results. But my mastery is also pretty high, so kind of haste, crit, mastery. If you can keep those all even similar, although I would favor haste above them all. If you can kind of keep them similar, you will have good results. I am parsing over 90 on pretty much any boss where I have the opportunity to actually do the fight correctly with pug groups and whatnot. So I would suggest having them all about even. Mastery, crit, I basically rank crit very slightly above mastery on a stat weight, with haste being number 1, and of course strength being number 1, and then haste being number 1 for secondary stats. I'll go over real quick about trinkets, just because there's a lot of confusion with trinkets. There is good best in slot trinkets charts you can find online, but I will say a World Quest Strength Haste trinket is going to be generally something very good that you can go with. I only have an 835 on, and that's still helping me a ton. Basically, I probably wouldn't really replace this until I get another Strength Haste trinket of higher item level. And then for another one, a Strength Mastery, I'm actually using a Strength Crit. So those are pretty good trinkets, and you can't really go wrong with those as a Fury Warrior either. So the last thing we'll kind of get into, what I feel like is causing the most trouble for the Fury Warriors that I've dealt with. I've probably come across personally in game on my server 6 or so Fury Warriors who just aren't pulling the DPS for that item level. For example, they might be 10 to 15 item levels higher than me, but doing less DPS on a boss than me. And the biggest thing I notice is people are using Bloodthirst too much. Before I completely get into that thought, let's kind of just go over the rotation. So when you start the fight, you're going to want to charge in and Dragon Roar. Now you can create a macro with that if you want. However is easiest for you to use it. I don't have many macros set up right now personally, but you can do a charge Dragon Roar macro, for example, and that's going to cause the damage you do to increase. But with that macro, you would want to, after Dragon Roar, pop your Battle Cry and your Avatar, if those are the talents that if you're using Avatar for that fight. So you're going to Dragon Roar, Cry, Avatar, and now you're going to want to use your Bloodthirst, and you're going to be enraged, and you're going to want to get off your Odin's Fury and your Raging Blow while you still have that Dragon Roar 20% buff. So that's going to cause a huge burst amount of DPS right at the start of the fight. It's going to set you off in the right path there. So from that point, basically what you're doing is you're trying to keep up your enrage as much as possible. So your bloodthirst, critical strikes, and your rampage is going to basically be how you're keeping your enrage up. You do not want to use any of your major abilities as little as you can, at least, unless you are enraged. So even if you can wait just a little bit longer, it's worth it to be enraged before you use like an Odin's Fury. As long as you're not just sitting there for multiple, like too long. But once your haste is high enough, you shouldn't be ever. There should never be a too long of a pause where you're not enraged. Your rampage should be popping up pretty quickly, and then with massacre and your executes, that's a whole different thing. But so basically, so we did the opening. So now at this point, you're going to be using Bloodthirst, Raging Blow, and Furious Slash. Furious Slash you should only use if you have no other options. Dragon Roar is better to use. Odin's Fury is better to use. Raging Blow and Bloodthirst all better to use than Furious Slash. So unless you, like I said, built a talent spec and it's working for you, which you shouldn't be here watching this video if it's working for you, and it's working for you around the Furious Slash, you should basically want to use that as literally only a filler. So you're going to use that as a filler, and then always when your rampage is up, you're going to want to use your Raging Blow directly afterwards. So you're going to rampage, Raging Blow, and then if Odin's Fury is up, use Odin's Fury. If not, you can then use Bloodthirst. You don't necessarily want to waste a Furious Slash with your Enrage. Like I said, you kind of want that to be a filler if possible. Obviously, doing something is better than doing nothing, so you don't want to just stand there and not hit any button, but you kind of want to time it with that the best you can. Another thing I think that might be giving some people trouble is just because there could be a lot of things procced at the same time. Maybe some people are getting confused. You're not always going to be perfect every time. It does take a little bit of practice, even though it's only a few buttons, and just kind of keep it going the best you can. When your battle cry is back up, you got to be smart about it. So you got to ask yourself, all right, am I already enraged? If I am, and I'm using battle cry, then I'm going to want to use Raging Blow. I'm going to want to use Odin's Fury. If I'm not enraged, then I'm going to want to use Bloodthirst to become enraged, and then try to use Raging Blow, Odin's Fury. Always, if you can, right after your battle cry, you're going to want to use your Dragon's Roar, as always. So battle cry, Dragon's Roar. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Go back. Dragon's Roar, battle cry. You don't want to waste the critical strike on your Dragon's Roar. That's always going to crit anyways. So reverse that order, and then Odin's Fury, Raging Blow, if possible. If not, if Odin's Fury is not up, it has a little bit longer of a cooldown sometimes. It seems like it. It's not really that long, but it seems like a really long cooldown. Use that. If not, Bloodthirst. So let's just get into the execute phase really quick, because that is completely different. Basically, for execute phase, if you chose Massacre, which generally is probably what you should choose, so what you're going to do is you're going to execute. When that critically strikes, you're then going to get a free rampage, and then you're going to want a Raging Blow, and you're going to rinse and repeat. The only thing different is I do throw in Odin's Fury if it's up, and I'll even throw in my Dragon's Roar appropriately. The same thing from phase 1. Now, if you look up the actual rotation, they'll basically just tell you you're going to execute, rampage, Raging Blow, and you're going to Bloodthirst if you don't have enough rage to execute with. So that would basically be the only time you use your Bloodthirst during the execute phase, is if you don't have enough rage. Now, with the artifact talent, Juggernaut, so you'll obviously want to get all 3 of your golden talents, but with your artifact talent, Juggernaut, what that's going to do is it's going to increase the critical strike chance of your execute every time, and you also have the one next to it. It's increasing my critical strike by execute by 10% as well. So my execute right now has a 37% chance to crit as it is. It's going to crit fairly often. So those crits are going to automatically give you a rampage. And what you'll notice during execute phase, once you have those golden talents, is that basically it's going to be an automatic crit, because eventually it's going to be over 50%, and it's just going to crit every single time. So you're going to go execute, rampage, Raging Blow, just as a general rule. But you can always mix in your Dragon's Roar to the same thing. So you could do execute, Raging Blow, Dragon's Roar, Odin's Fury, Raging Blow, or Raging Blow, Odin's Fury, and then go back, same thing. Execute, rampage, Raging Blow. Execute, rampage, Raging Blow. You're not going to use anything else if you don't have to use it. Bloodthirst only if you absolutely have to. And I think that's part of the reason why people's Bloodthirst is a little bit too high. Just by your kind of your top three moves are going to be Rampage, Raging Blow, well, probably Raging Blow, Rampage, and then Melee. And they can be a little bit switched up in there, but those three should be your top attacks. If Bloodthirst is in there, then you're probably doing something wrong. Execute should be pretty high as well on an actual raid fight because of that last phase where you're going to be executing constantly, pretty much. Execute, Raging Blow, or Rampage, Raging Blow. So that'll kind of get your execute up. I also happen to have the legendary ring, Stone Heart, which is getting nerfed, but that gives me a few more executes as well. I'm not going to get into that little bit of change of rotation because not everyone's going to have that ring, but just want to kind of give you a general guideline. Hopefully this helps some people out. Um, I've seen a lot of Fury Warriors struggling. I thought maybe they were weak, and then I got mine up. I'm starting to gear them out now. I'm hopefully going to be joining a guild with him to raid with, along with my Paladin, which if you watch my videos, that's who I've been maining this X pack, but I might want to switch to my Warrior because of how much fun I'm having, how easy it is to play. There's only a few buttons, and they are rather strong right now, at least um, it, at my item level. I'm assuming it's going to just scale up even more as my item level goes up, and as long as I keep continuing to parse in the mid 90s, then I'll be pretty happy with it. That's about all I have for this. If you have any questions, you can comment below. If you have any other ideas or theories or little tips or tricks you use, you can comment below to help people as well. As always, thumbs up and sub. That helps me out a ton. And other than that, everyone have a good one.